Hello, this is with Amnesia here, and I'm playing this. This is my tank engine, more or less. I'm working on. This is a more completed scene. It's part of the demo, but I was thinking about the T-34 or T-54 rather, 85, and it's kind of a weird spot because World of Tanks, this whole Tier 8 thing, Tier 7, you got the auto-loaded, like it's a better version of this, more firepower and all that whole jazz, and just tier 7's okay, right? But you know, like I'm just thinking like historically, what would Poland do in the late 40s? Like right when this whole tank was relatively, what the hell is going on? There we go. Well, this tank was relatively relevant, but it was relatively relevant, but it was kind of saying, its age. It wasn't very competitive, right? Like Poland would have had to done something different in the late 40s. They'd have to, because they're facing the M26s more or less, and Centurions. And the T-54-85 is more like a weird, wonky vehicle that might come about in the 80s or the 70s, or when the T-54 was kind of not very good, or maybe it would have come out in the early 50s when, like for example, when the Panther was a new tank, it had the one time it had a Panzer IV turret bolted onto it, because the Panther turret wasn't ready yet. It was just the turrets weren't quite in production to meet the hull production, right? Because I don't know, like wartime makes these weird variants you see, like captured vehicles with new guns and turrets, whatnot, and different, like the French got tanks, right? Or the Germans did with those, or stuff like that. So you see all those weird variants you can't quite account for until they're just someone sitting in a factory somewhere. But hey, look, we have these tanks we captured, or we could do this, or for example, like what would what would Germany do if they saw the IS-3? All the other nations after World War II, they just copied the piked hull more or less and the rounded turrets, and they that was the new kind of step of tank technology in a lot of nations like France, or I don't know, Sweden, you see it, and like for Poland, I don't know what they would do in late 40s, early 50s, because this tank is just not enough for them. It's just not enough. It simply isn't enough. Like it's all good and well and good to. So yeah, maybe the 80s training vehicle 54 with the 85, but then you had I think it was Grumpy Stranger or something like that, had a very good point where it was like hit the damn tank. 54 was like a new tank. It was like it was kind of, it doesn't quite match up with the whole timeline thing, right? It's kind of this. It's kind of like a chink in the whole theory, because it's like, okay, so these what if things are all well and good, but like, what would be a practical solution? What would be the upgrade to this tank? Would they just put autoloader in it and call it a day, I guess? Or when that wasn't good enough, like in say like the late 40s, like say like 1949 or something, like what would they do? Like the Centurions on the, say Operation Unthinkable happens, and for whatever reason or something, and you have to go to war again. I don't know what Poland would do. Tank destroyer SU-100, that'd be practical, I suppose. But for a medium tank, what would they do? Would they like team up with Czechoslovakia? Maybe, probably not, but maybe would they do the T-40, like T-44-100, or what direction would you do if you were the Poland Panzer or the tank designer guy, and you have a bunch of these tanks and there's some IS-2s and maybe a little bit IS-3 on the way, maybe if you wanted to. Tank destroyers, SU-122, 150s, and that kind of jazz, right? What would you do? You gotta defeat M26s, upgraded Germans, Centurions. That type of stuff. You have a new generation of tank you gotta go up against. Like, what would you field, practically speaking? Regardless of World of Tanks and War Thunder or whatnot, they're not quite history, right? They're emulations, right? Like World of Tanks is kind of a weird game in some aspects, because it's like it has these weird contrived tiers, right? And also World of Tanks, it might have more days, behind it than ahead of it, because there's kind of running out of tank nations. There's S tank might be the last tank that has new features. The S tank would not, right? Because basically they're kind of running out of steam. The little tanks. They have like probably maybe like 5 or 6 nations left. And they'll all be copies, more the same. Nothing really new to bring to the table, right? So, like, regardless of World of Tanks, like, what would Poland do in 1940, 48, whatever? I guess hit this damn tank. Ballistics aren't quite realistic in this, but yeah, because I do see some faults in my proposal with the T-54 85, because it's like 1980, 1970, right? Like, I don't know. 2 heads are better than 1, more or less. And I want your opinion on this thing. You guys live in Poland. I don't really live in Poland. I live over in Canada. Different bag entirely. Different bag of potatoes, more or less, right? So you guys know more Polish history, whatnot, than I do. And, I'm just really doing Poland because it's a challenge for me. Like Grumpy Stranger said, why am I doing this? For me, it's a challenge, right? It's like, well, Poland doesn't have many tanks. It has potential. It has a tank factory. It has, bound to be obscure things coming around, but So yeah, I don't know what to do with the gap between this guy, T-45, and the T-54, because it's like there's a natural gap, like regardless of a World of Tanks and War Thunder, how they classify vehicles. There is a gap, a power gap between the 2 vehicles, and like this guy wouldn't have cut it after World War II. He would have just been maybe with an autoloader, like a 100mm gun, maybe it could have had a bit of a chance, I guess. But then that's kind of, might have been overloading the suspension. You probably might have upgrade the suspension, maybe torsion bars or something, or because you have a tank factory producing these guys, and you readjust the production line, or you can just upgrade it. And, with this guy, like what with the next generation of, like you put a bigger gun on this, like how could you make this tank defeat, like Centurions or just be somewhat competitive against them, It doesn't have to be better than one-on-one, as in like the T-3045 wasn't better one-on-one versus a Tiger, but it was at least had a chance, and it could easily beat these guys. Not easily, but more or less, right? It was not as good as a Tiger, but competitive somewhat. Right? Anyway, like that, right? How could you do that with this, but versus Centurions and M26s? Anyway, that's my video. That's my thoughts on it, whatnot, and yeah, I want to do a video because something different, more personal, not showing what I'm up to anyway, too. Something different also. Yeah, this is with Amnesia signing out. Bye for now. Take care. Have fun, and yeah, see you next time.